over the past year and a half. Allow me to provide a little bit of a background as to who ASCE Georgia Section is and why we're here today. The Georgia Section is the local chapter of the ASCE Society, which is the oldest and largest civil engineering society in the nation, originating in 1852. The Georgia section of ASCE began in 1912 and currently maintains over 3,000 members across 4 active branches throughout our state. People in Georgia know all too well the importance of reliable infrastructure. When our infrastructure is working, it's typically out of sight and out of mind. It's when infrastructure is overwhelmed, such as water mains breaking, like we saw in Atlanta here recently. Those are the times that we think about infrastructure. As stewards of our infrastructure, civil engineers are responsible for the planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance of our vital public works. With the responsibility comes the obligation to periodically assess the state of our infrastructure, report on its condition and performance, and advise on the steps necessary to improve it. Today, we'll be unveiling the 2024 ASCE report card for Georgia's infrastructure. Today's findings include grades for each category. We assess a cumulative grade for the state, and we also have key findings for each of the chapters. This report is a snapshot tool for residents, municipalities, businesses, and policymakers to reference as they engage in conversation about where we are and where we want to be. I want to emphasize, this report is a reflection on the systems we have in place and their current and expected ability to withstand external stressors, such as increases in energy demands, population growth, increasing severe weather, and shifting traffic patterns, which are factors we are seeing impact almost every state in the nation. These grades are not a reflection of the people who work hard every day to operate and maintain those systems and have done incredible work with the resources made available to them. We as a state have made great strides over the years, but we hope that this information provides additional insights and rekindles important discussions about how necessary it is that we prioritize the systems Georgia residents rely upon each and every day. Next, I'd like to invite Julie Sechrest, my co-chair on the Georgia Report Card Committee and past president of ASCE Georgia. Julie will walk us through the findings and recommendations outlined in the report card. Julie?
Thank you, Anita. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Julie Sechrest. I'm the past president of ASCE Georgia and one of the co-chairs for this year's infrastructure report card. With infrastructure at the forefront of politics these days, it's great that we can come together in a forum like this to focus on our own state's infrastructure and the important role it plays in our safety and economic stability. So let's dive into the findings from the report. Using a simple A to F school report format, the 2024 report card provides a comprehensive assessment of current infrastructure covering 14 categories in Georgia. These categories include aviation, bridges, dams, drinking water, energy, ports, parks, rail, roads, school, solid waste, stormwater, transit, and wastewater. Each category is assessed by a team of civil engineers who assign grades according to the following 8 criteria: capacity, condition, funding, future need, operation and maintenance, public safety, resilience, and innovation. As a coastal and mountainous state, Georgia's infrastructure must be equipped to handle extreme weather and flooding conditions. These systems are also being pressed to accommodate our rapid population growth, which is a good problem to have as a state, but one that creates challenges in the near term. Because more residents and businesses means more people using our infrastructure systems. Georgia's infrastructure is also dealing with decades of deferred maintenance. And despite recent efforts to address these issues, our infrastructure is still under immense strain. Now let's discuss the actual grades. The cumulative grade for the 2024 report card for Georgia's infrastructure is a C+. A C+ means that our infrastructure is in better than average condition and is functioning well, but still requires attention. And it's 2 points ahead of the national score of C-. Georgia has a lot to be proud of, as 6 of the 14 categories improved, and only 3 grades went down since our last report in 2019. Even for the 3 categories that went down, our report found that the main causes for lower grades were external stressors, such as population growth and new technologies. The 6 grades that improved were bridges, dams, ports, parks, solid waste, and wastewater. The 3 that went down were aviation, drinking water, and transit, although each of these grades still remain better than their national averages. This is a testament to Georgia's agencies, utilities, and policymakers for making strides toward improving our built environment to make life better and safer for all Georgia residents and businesses. There's a few highlights that I'd like to point out. Starting with bridges, now with a B grade, only 1.3 of Georgia's 9,000 bridges are considered in poor condition. And for context, the national average for bridges in poor condition is 7%. Ports, one of our major economic drivers, saw a significant grade increase since 2019 and has our highest grade in the report with a B+. The Port of Savannah is currently the busiest U.S. port for exports, and the Ports Authority has expedited many infrastructure projects to keep up with demands. On the flip side, while Georgia has invested heavily in these systems that fuel our economy, it has underinvested in the transit systems that can help supply the workforce necessary to continue our economic growth. Our transit network received the lowest grade in the report with a D. This is because Georgia has largely left transit funding to local municipalities, leaving much of the state with limited to no transit service. And lastly, our drinking water systems are obviously top of mind after the recent water main breaks here in Atlanta. Drinking water received a C+, which is on par with the national grade, but did go down since our last report. And this is mostly due to the rapid population growth in Georgia, coupled with lower than average water rates for residents. So these grades show that Georgia legislators and agencies are working hard at improving our infrastructure, but there's still work left to be done. If we are ready to improve what we've already accomplished, ASCE has some suggestions to start raising the grades. First, deliver dedicated state transit funding. Second, set responsible, resilient utility rates and user fees. Third, expand safety funding and oversight for dams and roads. Fourth, invest in new electricity generation and a resilient grid. And lastly, increase funding and coordination of intermodal freight projects. So I would like to thank our committee of 50 to 60 civil engineers, several of whom are here today, who volunteered their time over the last year and a half to put this report together. So thank you very much. And thanks again to everyone else for being here today. We are so pleased to publish this report for you all and for our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for taking us through these extensive findings. Now that we've had a chance to go through some of this material, and yes, there is still quite a bit that we haven't actually even discussed, so be sure to check out the full report and chapters we haven't covered online after this event. We'll now turn it over to our guests. It is my pleasure to introduce Representative Vance Smith of Georgia's 133rd District. Representative Smith is a longtime advocate for infrastructure priorities, currently serving as Vice Chairman of the Natural Resources and Environment Committee and Vice Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. He previously served as Chairman of the House Transportation Committee for 5 years. Representative Smith, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you all today. Specifically want to thank Ms. Marcia Anderson-Bomar, who's been a friend for years and years, for giving me a call, and we discussed, and she asked me to come up and be with you. But thank you to all the engineers. We appreciate what you do. If you think about it, God's given us all a talent, and He's given some great people across the state of Georgia the talent of being great engineers, and they've worked hard to keep our state moving forward. I'm not an engineer, but I've worked with some very fine engineering companies here in Georgia. I'm a business development person, and I've had the opportunity to work with several companies here in Georgia. And I've also had the opportunity to serve with a large number of great engineers at GDOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, which was an honor for me to be there with them. And they do a tremendous job. You know, we take a lot for granted when we get up in the morning, turn the knob on, water comes out. Somebody designed those water systems, designed the pipes that bring it to us, and it's right there in our home. And we don't think about who did all the work to bring that water to us. The same holds true when we turn the switch on the lights. Somebody developed that electrical grid. Somebody's worked real hard to bring us the 3rd and 4th nuclear plants here in Georgia. First ones being built in the last 30 years. So some tremendous work by some tremendous engineers to bring that to us here in the state of Georgia. You've heard the roads, bridges, airports, ports, transit, rail, as you could say. All those are vital for us, for our families and for our business. We like to go with our families on vacation, travel to ball games. We have to travel in our business. Engineers have provided the access for us to go from point A to point B, for our goods and services to go from point A to point B. So we owe them a great deal of gratitude for what they've done. I have been honored to serve on the House Transportation Committee, and I've also been honored to serve on the House Appropriations Subcommittee of Transportation. And yes, funding has been involved. A bill was passed some 8 or 9 years ago that increased the budget at GDOT $1 billion for us to spend on roads, bridges, aviation, transit. There's been other funding added by Governor Kemp, additional monies for the bridges, as were mentioned, and you notice that our percentage of failing bridges has really decreased, which is good because that's safety for our families as we travel the highways in Georgia. I really like one category that has really increased in funding. I've been in the legislature off and on 23 years, is the aviation, the 102 small airports across the state of Georgia. That's economic development to these communities, and we've increased that funding so that they can have new runway, new asphalt, new LED lighting, hangar space, so small business can come into a local community. They can find 25 or 30 employees that may have gone to our technical schools or our university system in Georgia, and they can create a business there, and they don't have to deal with the traffic in Atlanta, Georgia. It spreads that economy across our whole state. So I'll say the key word to me between engineering, the legislature, the civilians in the state of Georgia, our citizens and our constituents, it's all about teamwork, working with the House and the Senate, the engineering associations across Georgia. We continue to try to improve and get the job done. So it's been an honor for me to be a part of that. I hope to continue to be a part of that, and I'm willing to help you any time that we can. So thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Representative Smith, for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your valuable insights. Next, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Tim Echols. Commissioner Eccles is the vice chairman of the Georgia Public Service Commission, where they are doing fantastic work to ensure our influx of residents and businesses are able to rely on the state's energy grid. Commissioner Eccles, thank you so much for joining us today.
Did you ever get called into the principal's office when you were in school? I mean, I graduated UGA with a 3.04 GPA, and I blame a lot of it on my wife because my senior year representative, I met her at the beginning of that year, and she cost me a D in Biology 102, which I waited until the very last quarter back then to take. And that moved me from a 3.1 to a 3.0. This is kind of how it feels today. There's no cake here. There's no celebration here because as you look at these 14 grades, there's not a single A in the list. And, initially I was upset about all this. I admit it. I admit that I was angry that we didn't make the dean's list, in this. Instead, we made your list. I was upset, but I'm moving beyond that now because I really value the expertise that engineers have. And I mean, there are people that pay good money for engineering consulting, good money. We have a phenomenal group of engineering firms here in Atlanta, and they do incredible work. And I think what I'm having to do here is to set aside my personal pride as a lifelong Georgian, as a state constitutional officer, and look at these grades and realize that we've got a lot of opportunity ahead of us, that we've had experts evaluate all of these categories, these 14 categories, and let us know, hey, these are areas that we need improvement. And going back to your meeting with your science teacher in school, with your parents sitting there. I mean your parents, when you're called in for a meeting and you're making a D or you're making a C, your parents, they're not happy about that. My parents weren't. I mean, my parents wanted me to get an A. I mean, that was it, and I got in trouble if I didn't, and they wanted to know why. So, I mean, why aren't we doing better in these categories? And I think for those that are stakeholders, those that are policymakers like myself, at least in one category, energy, this is a wake-up call that we need to get ready for the future. We need to be able to take these 14 areas of infrastructure, and I'd love for us to be here in 3 years or 6 years with a lot of A's on this report card because we took the action needed to move forward. You heard in the report that Georgia's energy, that one of the recommendations was to get more generation here in Georgia. And when y'all initially had been evaluating all this and talked with us in Georgia, at the commission, we knew that we needed this, and we recently approved 6,600 megawatts of energy that will be deployed for the 2028 to 2030 time period, and we'll probably look at deploying another 8,000 megawatts for the 29 through 31 period. Georgia Power is going to be bringing that to us because we do have so many people coming to Georgia, and we simply have to get ready for that. I know that Hyundai and Q-Cells and so many companies are looking at Georgia now, as the answer to their needs and their problems, because Georgia has extra energy here because of Plant Vogtle, that Representative mentioned earlier, and we've got a lot of opportunity ahead to add even more generation. Hey, we're open for business, and we want people to know that, and we want to continue to respond. So I don't expect you to clap for these grades here. No clapping allowed for this kind of a report card. My parents, when my son said, "Dad, C's get degrees," I mean, it's like, no, that's just wrong, son. You know, but he's selling real estate in Panama City with his 2 point whatever GPA. So we can do this. We just need to get better. So thank you for the hard work that you've done with this, for the wonderful professionalism that your association and all of our engineering associations bring to our state. We need to listen to you, and we need to make these improvements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Eccles. I'd like to close by saying that the future of our state relies on our ability to maintain and improve the current conditions of even our most thriving infrastructure sectors, while also improving those that have greater needs. Our infrastructure drives economic growth, creates jobs, improves public health, and protects us from extreme weather. We work hard to build and maintain our systems for the public's health, safety, and welfare, and we ask that our policymakers review the 2024 report card for Georgia's infrastructure when making infrastructure policy that affects our citizens. I'd like to once again thank our committee who diligently completed the report card this year, over a year and a half. You will now be able to find the full report at infrastructurereportcard.org/Georgia. Also a QR code on your chair. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to email us at reportcard@asce.org. Again, the email address is reportcard@asce.org. We would also be happy to speak with you after we close out to go over any questions or have any questions over the details that we might have in the report. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and I think it's a great day for Georgia and a great day for civil engineers. Pictures, please, if we would mind joining us. With the group.
Yeah. Representative, they want you up here.
Brent, can you take your photos of us?
I don't think he heard me.